They had expected monsters. That was the thought running through every mind as the line of exhausted Zareth women stumbled across the red plains of Vardos III. The wind cut like thin knives. Dust clung to their swollen eyes and cracked lips. Their uniforms, once symbols of duty, were now little more than torn, filthy cloth holding their fear together. They did not look back at the burning ruins behind them. They already knew what waited there. Defeat. Silence. The end of everything they had been told to believe. What waited ahead was worse. Human soldiers. The beasts of soul. The ones the Dominion told stories about at night, stories whispered to scare recruits into obedience. Stories so brutal the women had prayed they would never live long enough to confirm them. Now they were being marched straight toward them. Yara shifted the weight of the wounded girl on her shoulder. The girl, Tali, was barely conscious, her skin gray with dehydration and fever. Each step sent a sharp pain up Yara's spine, but she kept moving. If she slowed, the guards, old Zareth reservists who had surrendered and handed them over for processing, would shout. Or worse, leave her. The line crawled over a low ridge, and then the human camp came into view. The women froze. It wasn't the size of the camp. It wasn't the strange steel shapes or the banners marked with a blue and white emblem. It wasn't even the tall, armored figures moving between the tents like shadows. It was the silence. Human soldiers, according to Dominion training, were loud. Brutal. Always shouting, always laughing while they hurt prisoners, always dragging women by the hair. But the humans here did none of that. They moved with calm purpose, not chaos. No screaming. No cruelty. No mocking. Just quiet discipline. Yara felt her stomach twist. Fear, she told herself. It has to be fear. The calm before they strike. A human officer stepped forward. His armor was clean but battered, the dark plate scratched from battle. He carried no whip. No stun rod. No restraints. Only a small slate in his hand. A translator device clicked at his belt. He spoke, and the translator repeated the words in the smooth, clear tones of the Dominion dialect. "Welcome to Temporary Processing Base 47, it said. "No one here will harm you." The line of Zareth women trembled, and not a single one believed him. Humans lie. Humans trap. Humans pretend kindness to lower your guard. That was the teaching burned into them for years. The officer looked over their group. His eyes lingered, not on their bodies, not on their fear, but on Tali, who hung limp in Yara's arms. He lifted one hand. A gesture. Not a threat. 2 human medics rushed forward. The Zareth line panicked. Several women screamed warnings. A few dropped to their knees, hands over their faces. One elderly clerk fainted outright, slumping into the dirt. Yara could not run. Her legs were shaking too hard. She stood frozen as the 2 humans approached. They were tall. Broad. Armored. Their helmets were off, revealing strange pale skin, short hair, and unreadable expressions. One medic knelt to Tali's level. The other spoke gently. "May we help her?" The translator repeated the words, and every Zareth woman went still. Help? That word was a threat in Dominion camps. Help meant extraction of information, pain drugs, or obedience training. But the humans had no cables. No needles in their hands. No tools. Only a medical scanner and a sealed water pack. Yara tried to pull Tali back, but her arms shook too much. "She is sick," she said, voice breaking. "Please do not make it worse." The human medic shook his head. "No one hurts prisoners under Union law." Union law. Another phrase none of the women trusted. The medic placed the scanner against Tali's neck. It beeped softly. He checked the screen, then motioned to his partner. Together they lifted her, not roughly, not like property, but with strange, careful respect, and carried her toward a medical tent. No! One of the women cried. Don't take her! Please don't take her! But the humans did not drag Tali away. They brought her inside and called for additional medics. Yara felt dizzy. If this was a trap, it was the most confusing one she had ever seen. The Zareth guards who had escorted them stepped back, clearly relieved to be done. A human sergeant walked them off toward their own processing area. No shouts. No threats. Just calm instructions. Another human approached the Zareth prisoners. This one carried blankets and a crate of sealed water packs. He placed them on the ground, backed away a respectful distance, and spoke through the translator. These are for you. Drink slowly. You are dehydrated. None of the women moved. Blankets? Water? Given freely? No Dominion officer would waste supplies on captured auxiliaries. Water was for soldiers. Heat was for officers. Prisoners were left to freeze or faint. That was the order of things. Yara's throat ached. She reached for a water pack, hand trembling. Every pair of Zareth eyes watched her. She pressed the nozzle to her lips. Took a small sip. Not poison. Not chemicals. Just water. She drank again, faster, until she was gasping between gulps. A human soldier approached with a small heater pack, powered by a glowing core. He set it down near the group but said nothing. He did not stare at them. He did not smirk. He simply made sure they would not freeze. Then he walked away. The women stared after him, unsure if they had just witnessed mercy, or something they didn't even have a word for. Yara wiped her mouth and whispered, "Why are they doing this?" No one answered. The humans weren't acting like beasts. Weren't acting like monsters. Weren't acting like anything the Dominion had promised. For the first time since the war began, Yara felt something dangerous rising inside her. Not hope, not trust, but doubt. A crack in the wall. A tiny fracture in everything she had been taught. And doubt, she knew, could destroy an empire faster than any weapon. The humans had not touched them. Had not harmed them. Had not even shouted. And somehow, that terrified her more than all the stories ever had. Night fell fast on Vardos 3. The heat of the day faded into a sudden cold that sank into bone. The Zareth women huddled close to the small heater pack the humans had left, but none dared sit too close. None dared sleep deeply. Every few minutes someone jolted awake, convinced the humans were coming back to take something from them. Yara sat upright, arms around her chest, eyes fixed on the human camp lights glowing in the dark like silent stars. Tali was still inside the medical tent. Every second she was gone tore something tight inside Yara's chest. Dominion stories replayed again and again. Women taken away, never returned, or returned broken. Those stories were supposed to prepare them. Instead, they poisoned every thought. A rustle of movement passed through the line. A shadow approached. Tall. Broad. Human. The women froze. The human carried a metal tray with steam rising from it. The smell drifted toward them, warm, simple food. A pale broth. Soft bread. Protein cubes. Not slop. Not punishment food. Actual meals. The human stopped several steps away, placed the tray on the ground, and then stepped back, palms open to show no threat. Eat, the translator said. You must stay strong. Strong? Why would they want that? Strong prisoners were harder to control. Harder to break. Harder to move. Suspicion ran through the whole group. We cannot pay, an older clerk whispered. The human blinked, confused for a moment, then spoke again. This is not payment. This is care. Several women flinched at the word. Care meant something entirely different in Dominion camps. It meant careful monitoring. It meant breaking you slowly. It meant you will not die yet, we still need you. Yara felt sick. The human did not argue. He only nodded once and returned to his post, keeping his distance. No staring. No threats. No demands. The women stared at the food for a long time. Finally, Yara picked up a small piece of bread. She tore it in half. Steam rose. Not drugged. Not rotten. Not laced with anything. She took a bite. Soft. Warm. Real. Hunger hit her like a physical blow. She had not eaten properly in days. Weeks, maybe? She wanted to devour everything, but she forced herself to breathe slowly. Once she took her second bite, the others followed. Soon they were all eating in silence, tense, watching the shadows for any sign of a trap. But no trap came. Only more silence. More calm. More confusion. When they finished, the wind struck again, cold and sharp. A few women tried to share blankets, but the cloth was thin and worn. Then another human approached. A woman this time, broad-shouldered, hair tied back, expression focused. She wore a medic's band on her arm. She carried a small bundle. The Zareth women recoiled. But instead of touching them, the human medic knelt several meters away and set the bundle down, new blankets, thick and insulated. She backed away immediately, as if careful not to cause fear. She spoke through the translator. "These are clean. You will sleep warmer." One of the young clerks whispered. "Why are they giving us these? We are the enemy." The human woman heard her. She paused, looked at them for a long moment, then said something softly in her own language. The translator clicked. "In our army, enemy or not, wounded and prisoners are protected. It is law. It is honor." Honor. A strange word from a human mouth. Dominion doctrine said humans had none. The human woman gave a small nod and left them alone in the night. As soon as she disappeared behind the tents, the women turned toward one another in a soft wave of fear and disbelief. "They are hiding something. This is a trick. They want information. They want to make us trust them. Then hurt us worse." Every voice whispered the same thing, because that was all they knew. Yara stayed quiet. She was not convinced of anything. But when she reached for one of the blankets, she couldn't deny the warmth spreading through her fingers. It felt like a lie. It felt like safety. And she did not know which scared her more. An hour later, footsteps approached again. Heavy. Multiple. A human escort walked toward them, 4 soldiers, helmets off, faces tired but alert. In the center walked the same human officer from earlier. "We need to speak with your group," the translator said. "One at a time, in the open, where everyone can see. No force will be used. Speak. Not interrogate? Not isolate?" It made no sense. The officer stepped forward, slow and deliberate, making every movement clear and predictable. He pointed to the ground beside him. "You will stand here," the translator echoed, "and confirm your name, role, and medical needs. Nothing more." He wasn't even asking for military information. Not codes. Not units. Not defensive positions. Just names and needs. The first volunteer, if it could be called that, was an older medic named Sarah. She trembled as she stepped forward. Every Zareth woman watched with dread, waiting for the humans to strike. But all the officer did was check her name against a list, ask if she was injured, and nod with respect when she answered. He even thanked her. Thanked her. As if she had done something valuable. When Sarah returned to the group, she looked pale and shaken, whispering, "They didn't touch me." More women went up. More identical treatment. No raised voices. No threats. No demands. They stood in the open, lights bright, every step visible. When it was Yara's turn, her legs felt like they might give out. She stepped into the circle of light. The human officer studied her with calm eyes, not cold, not cruel, just attentive. Name? The translator asked. Yara. Role? Medical assistant. Injuries? She hesitated. Only exhaustion. The human nodded. He wrote something on his slate. Then he spoke again, his voice softer, and the translator followed. Tali, the girl you carried, she is stable. She was severely dehydrated, but she will recover. You may see her in the morning. Yara's breath caught. Her heart squeezed so tight she thought she might collapse. Stable. Recover. She would see her. Dominion commanders never told prisoners news like that. They never reassured. Never comforted. The humans just had. The officer stepped back. Thank you, the translator said. Thank you? For nothing. For existing. Humans made no sense. Yara returned to the group, legs shaking. The women stared at her, whispering questions, but she didn't answer any of them. She sat down, pulled the blanket tight around herself, and stared at the human camp lights again. This time, they looked different. Not like the glow of danger. More like something she didn't have a name for yet. Something her own empire had never shown her. Something that felt, frighteningly, like humanity. The night passed without screams. Without boots stomping toward them. Without anyone dragged away. For most of the Zareth women, that was the strangest part. They woke to a soft chime, gentle, not sharp. A human sound meant to wake, not frighten. Yara pushed herself up, blanket wrapped around her shoulders. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then the human camp came into focus. Lines of tents. Clean pads. Lights dimmed to morning mode. Not a prison. Not a punishment yard. Something else. A human medic approached carrying 2 clear containers, water and warm broth. She placed them down and stepped far back, waiting. Everything the humans did was slow. Predictable. Visible. Almost like they were trying to avoid frightening them. But that made it worse somehow. More suspicious. More impossible to understand. The breath visible in the cold air made the moment feel unreal. Yara took the first sip of water. Clean. No chemicals. No sedatives. Nothing like the Dominion rations meant to keep prisoners weak and compliant. Tali appeared several minutes later, escorted by a human nurse. The nurse didn't touch her, just walked beside her, steady and patient. When Tali saw the group, she rushed forward with more strength than she should have, nearly stumbling. Yara caught her in a tight embrace, shock and relief flooding through her. You're alive? Yara whispered. Tali nodded, tears running down her scaled cheeks. They fixed my dehydration. They gave me warming pads. They asked before they did anything. They didn't even take my uniform. This last part hit everyone hard. Dominion doctrine had always said, humans strip prisoners first. It was what monsters did. It was their signature. Yet here Tali was. Fully dressed. Unharmed. The women stared at her like she was speaking myths. A human officer approached again, the same one from before, the one with the calm blue eyes. He stayed several steps back, hands visible. The translator drone hovered at his shoulder. We will move you to the main compound soon, the translator said. You will have individual sleeping units, controlled heating, regular meals, and monitored medical care. You will not be questioned today. Not questioned? Prisoners always got questioned. The older women exchanged looks of deep confusion. Tali stepped slightly behind Yara, but she didn't tremble this time. Something in her had shifted overnight. The officer continued, Before we move, we must check your physical stability. This will be done at a distance. No contact. Yara raised her hand, surprising herself. Why? Why are you doing this? The human paused. It was the first time he seemed unsure of how to answer. When he finally spoke, the translator echoed. Because you surrendered. And you are people. That is enough. People. Not enemies. Not targets. Not animals. People. The words slid under their ribs like a quiet shock. The humans ran scans on each woman, light bars moving over their bodies from a meter away, checking heart rate, hydration, and stress. No metal restraints. No forced positions. No prodding. The contrast to Dominion procedures felt unreal. Dominion medtech units restrained enemy prisoners first, then tested them, then restrained them again, just in case. The humans seemed terrified of causing fear. Terrified of themselves. It made no sense. The march to the main compound was short. The human guards walked in a loose formation, not hurting the women, but walking near them, giving space. Yara noticed a strange detail. The humans never pointed their weapons at them. The rifles were always angled down, safeties on, held carefully. As if pointed weapons were offensive. As if dignity mattered. Even here. When they reached the compound gate, every Zareth woman froze. The gate was open. Not forced open. Not cracked. Just open. 2 human soldiers stepped aside, leaving a clear path. Enter freely, the translator said. You are not in cages. Enter freely? POWs did not get that option. Inside were soft lights, clean floors, rows of small insulated shelters with bed rolls and heating pads. Everything was separated, not crammed together. Privacy. Real privacy. One of the women whispered. This must be the trick. This is where they separate us. But no separation came. The humans assigned shelters, 2 women to each. They explained where the wash units were, how to activate the heating pads, where water was stored, how to call for help if needed. Call for help. Prisoners could call for help? Tali tugged on Yara's sleeve. Look, they even gave us new socks. She held them up, thick, soft, clearly human-made. Not scavenged scraps. Not uniforms taken from other prisoners. Brand new. Yara stared at them with a strange feeling in her chest. Not trust. Not fear. Something in between that hurt to hold. One human soldier walked past slowly, carrying a crate of supplies. A young Zareth woman, the smallest among them, flinched so hard she fell against a wall. The human stopped immediately. He placed the crate down gently and stepped backward. Then he spoke, voice low, urgent. Through the translator. I'm sorry. I moved too fast. I won't do that again. A human was apologizing. A soldier. To a prisoner. The small Zareth woman stared at him, stunned. Her hands shook as she whispered. But you are victorious. Why would you apologize to me? The human looked at her a long moment, his face unreadable. Then he replied quietly. Because victory is no excuse to hurt someone. The words hit the group like a blow. Dominion victory had always been an excuse for anything: burning towns, stripping prisoners, forced labor, intimidation. Victory meant permission. But to humans, victory meant restraint? Yara felt her throat tighten. For the first time she noticed how the humans looked at them, not like spoils, not like tools, not like bodies. Like survivors. Like equals whose suffering mattered. As they settled into their shelters, Yara sat beside Tali, blanket wrapped around her shoulders, staring at the human guards who stood at a distance, talking softly, doing their best not to intrude. Tali whispered, Yara, are we safe? Safe was not a word Zareth prisoners ever used. But Yara couldn't deny the thought forming in her mind. I don't know, she whispered back. But this is not the enemy we were told about. For the first time, she felt fear of a different kind. Not fear of pain. Not fear of cruelty. Fear of the truth. Humans were not monsters. And if the Dominion had lied about that, what else had they lied about? The question stayed with her long into the quiet night. The human compound was quiet the next morning. Too quiet. Dominion camps always woke to barking orders, boots slamming on metal floors, shouted counts, the rattling of chains and doors. But here, the only sounds were soft footsteps and the low hum of heaters. It felt wrong. It felt dangerous in a way Yara couldn't explain. Calm was not normal. Calm meant something was coming. The Zareth women gathered near the water station, each still wearing their uniforms, each clutching the blankets given to them like shields. Even after 2 nights, none of them dared let their guard down. A human medic approached carrying a scanner slate. She stopped several meters away and nodded. "Daily health check," the translator said. "You can refuse. It is voluntary." Voluntary. The word cut through the air like a blade. Voluntary in Dominion language meant nothing. Here, the human meant it. The medic waited, saying nothing, pushing nothing. Sarah, the elder healer, stepped forward first. The medic kept her distance, scanning from afar. Heart rate, stress levels, hydration. All visible on the slate. No touching. No forcing. No grabbing. When the scan finished, the medic bowed her head slightly, a small gesture of respect, and stepped back. One by one, the others followed. When the medic reached Yara, she paused for a moment. The translator flickered. "You did not sleep well," it said softly. Yara blinked. "How do you know?" "Your pulse pattern shows fear." Fear. She wanted to argue, to deny, but her voice cracked instead. The medic said nothing more. She simply offered a small pack containing calming tea and nutritional supplements, set it on the ground, and moved away. Yara stared after her, confused, unsure whether she wanted to cry or run. Later that day, the human officer returned and requested a meeting. Not in private. Not in a small room. In the open, with all of them present. The women formed a tight cluster, uncertain. The officer stood several meters away, hands behind his back, posture straight but calm. "There is something you must know," the translator said. "A transport ship is coming tomorrow. You will be moved to a permanent POW facility. Conditions will remain the same: privacy, care, protection. You will be safe." Safe. Again, that strange word. Then he added, "Before you leave this temporary camp, we want to answer your questions. Any of them. About us. About the rules. About what happens next." Questions? Prisoners didn't get questions. The women exchanged looks. No one spoke at first. Not until the young one, the same girl who had flinched at the soldier earlier, stepped forward. She was shaking so hard her voice nearly broke. "Why?" she whispered. "Do you refuse to look at us the way our commanders said you would?" The humans exchanged glances of confusion. The officer stepped forward by only a half step. "I'm not sure I understand." "Our commanders said human males stare," she continued. "Stare the way predators do. They said you enjoy making women feel afraid." Something inside the human formation shifted. Disgust, anger, disbelief. The officer's jaw tightened. His voice was firm when he answered. "Any soldier who behaved like that would be removed from duty and court-martialed." The translator echoed the words, but the women still stared blankly. "Removed? Court-martialed? Humans punished their own for small acts of cruelty?" The officer added. "Respect is required. Prisoners, civilians, even enemies, everyone. We are not allowed to degrade you. Not allowed to approach without warning. Not allowed to touch you without consent. Not allowed to make you uncomfortable." The young Zareth girl swayed where she stood, the truth hitting her so hard she had to grip Yara's arm. Her voice cracked. "That is not what we were told. They said you. The officer waited patiently. "They said you take joy in it." The silence that followed was heavy. It hurt. A human woman soldier stepped forward, helmet off, face hard with the kind of anger born from principle, not violence. She spoke quietly. We fight hard in war. But we do not prey on the weak. Ever. That is dishonor. That is betrayal. And we do not become the monsters others claim we are. The translator repeated her words in Zareth. It felt like a fire spreading through the women's minds. Not monsters. Not predators. Not what they were told. Tali whispered to Yara, voice trembling. If they lied about this, what else did they lie about? Yara didn't answer. She couldn't. The truth sat heavy inside her chest. That afternoon, the humans allowed them free movement inside the compound. Not unlimited, still guarded, still watched, but gently. Carefully. With rules that made sense. Near the wash station, a human soldier bent to refill a heater unit. When he looked up, he saw 3 Zareth women staring at him, terrified. He froze instantly. Then he set the heater down, took 3 steps back, and raised both hands to show he had no intent. I'll leave it here, the translator said for him. You can take it when I go. He walked away slowly, boots crunching softly on the ground. The 3 women burst into tears. Not because of fear. Because the humans were afraid of scaring them. Dominion officers never cared if prisoners were afraid. In fact, they preferred it. Fear was control. Fear was useful. Humans treated fear like something wrong. Something that needed to be eased, not increased. Yara watched all of it, every moment sinking deeper into her mind until she felt something heavy begin to crack inside her. Propaganda wasn't just wrong. It was poison. And it had stolen years of truth from them. As night fell again, the women gathered in their shelters. Tali whispered, Do you think the permanent facility will be the same? Yara didn't know. But the humans had not lied yet. Not once. Not even about the small things. That alone frightened her. Before she could answer, a human guard walked past, slow, steady. He paused when he reached their shelter. Not to stare. Not to threaten. Just to check the heater level. He set down a new power cell and nodded once before moving on. Yara watched him disappear into the lantern-lit pathways of the camp, his silhouette straight and calm. Then she whispered to Tali, voice shaking. If these are the monsters, what does that make us for believing it? Tali had no answer. The truth settled over them like the cold night air, quiet, heavy, impossible to escape. Humans weren't terrifying because of strength. Not because of weapons. Not because of war. Humans were terrifying because of the one thing the Dominion could never understand. Kindness as power. Restraint as strength. Honor as a weapon sharper than fear. And Yara realized, for the first time in her life, that the Dominion had never feared human cruelty. They had feared human humanity. The next morning in the human forward camp carried a kind of tense quiet, the sort soldiers got when they sensed the sky itself was holding its breath. Lyra woke early despite barely sleeping, her mind replaying Captain Hayes's warning on a loop. What happens next depends on them. Them, meaning the Etorian command, the empire she had once sworn to die for, the same empire that had treated her and her fellow POWs as disposable assets. Humans were preparing for something. She felt it the moment she stepped outside the barracks. Soldiers moving with sharper coordination, comms officers snapping out coded updates, drones lifting off in pairs instead of singles. Even the air smelled different, like the metallic tang before a lightning storm. Sergeant Torres approached her with a data pad in one hand and a mug of human coffee in the other. You should eat, he said. Big day ahead. Lyra accepted the mug hesitantly. Human stimulants were stronger, but she'd grown to like the bitter burn. What's happening? Instead of answering, Torres tilted his head to the rising sun. A human shuttle streaked across the sky, leaving a glowing trail. Your people sent a message, he said quietly. Empire's moving in our direction. Her throat tightened. To retrieve us? He gave a humorless laugh. Not exactly. He didn't elaborate, and Lyra didn't push. She walked toward the perimeter where a group of other alien POWs stood, murmuring nervously. Thrask, the towering reptilian lieutenant, looked tense enough to snap a metal pole in half. They're coming, he muttered as she approached. Empire fleet. Not rescue. Not recovery. Cleansing. The word hit like a cold blade. Cleansing missions were infamous, small, precise, brutal. The Empire destroyed compromised units rather than risk information leaks. POWs were rarely worth retrieving, they were liabilities. Lyra felt something inside her fracture. They mean to erase us, she whispered. Thrask nodded. We always knew what we were to them. A human comms officer shouted from the towers overhead. Unidentified incoming vessels. All personnel to defensive stations. The ground thrummed beneath Lyra's feet as human artillery platforms powered up. Soldiers ran, gears clattering, rifles slung tight. She saw Hayes striding across the command yard barking orders, calm, controlled, but there was urgency in his stride she hadn't heard before. Humans outnumbered, outgunned, their camp barely fortified, yet none of them hesitated. It struck her again. These humans weren't like any soldiers she'd known. A junior Etorian, barely an adult, trembled beside her. We're dead. They'll vaporize the whole zone. Lyra grabbed his arm firmly. Not if humans fight them off. He stared at her like she'd spoken madness. Humans can't stand against an Empire cruiser. Lyra didn't look away. Maybe not. But they will still stand. The first distant thunder rolled overhead. An energy flash rippled through the sky. Everyone looked up. Empire dropships, sleek, silver, merciless, broke through the clouds like shards of glass. The camp sirens wailed. Human soldiers sprinted past Lyra, forming defensive lines. No panic. No despair. Just formation, order, readiness. Move the POWs underground, a captain shouted. But Lyra didn't move. Neither did Thrask. Nor half the aliens around them. Torres ran over. Hey! Let's go, now! Thrask bared his fangs. To what? So we die hidden like vermin? Lyra shook her head. Sergeant, we want to fight. Torres blinked. Against your people? It's them or us, Lyra said simply. They abandoned us. Humans didn't. For a split second Torres looked stunned, then something fierce sparked in his eyes. He raised his calm. Captain Hayes. You hearing this? Static. Then Hayes's voice, sharp and incredulous. All of them? Torres looked at Lyra. She lifted her chin. All of us who choose to live. Thrask slammed his fist against his chest. A half-dozen more POWs did the same. The camp filled with a rising rumble of alien voices pledging themselves moment by moment. Hayes's answer was immediate. Then they're with us. Arm them. Torres tossed Lyra a human rifle. She caught it smoothly, surprised by the weight, by how natural it felt to hold a weapon again, not as an Imperial soldier, but something new. She checked the power cell, shouldered it, and breathed. The sky lit up as the first dropship descended. Hayes ran out onto the front line, eyes scanning, coat whipping in the wind. Positions! Lyra took her place beside human soldiers she barely knew but suddenly trusted more than the Empire she'd served her whole life. The dropship opened fire. A beam tore up the ground just meters ahead, throwing dirt and shrapnel. Human mortars answered in a roar. Alien POWs spread out across the flank, some shouting war cries in languages humans had never heard. Thrask leaped forward, firing explosive projectiles that cracked against the dropship's shields. Lyra saw humans push up through the smoke, Hayes among them, advancing under sheer willpower. She followed, rifle hot in her hands, firing in controlled bursts. Enemy drones flooded out from the dropship, spinning and hunting. Humans rolled, shot them out of the air with impossible precision. One drone streaked toward Torres. Lyra moved on instinct, firing a shot that blasted it apart mid-flight. Torres shot her a grin through the chaos. "See? You're practically human already!" She gave a breathless laugh. Then the ground shook violently as a second dropship landed behind the first. Human lines buckled, but no one fell back. Lyra watched haze white blood from his brow, eyes set with iron. He raised his rifle one more time and shouted, "Hold the line!" And to her own astonishment, she felt adrenaline surge, not from fear, but from pride. When the second dropship's doors opened, Lyra stepped forward first, shouting in her own tongue so loudly the air seemed to vibrate. "We are not yours to erase!" Alien POWs echoed her, a thunderous, rebellious roar that shook the battlefield. Humans followed with their own furious cry. Two forces, once enemies, now stood shoulder to shoulder against the empire that had bound them both. For the first time in her life, Lyra wasn't following orders. She was choosing. And she chose humanity.